And I'm sorry to say 99% of the people, not including this audience, obviously, don't know what the word AI actually means. Everybody is using this as a buzzword, AI this, AI that, AI this. Everything you want to do, including the sweeper, he says, oh yes, but my broom is AI driven. Of course it is. So we need to understand what is AI. What is the meaning of artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence actually started long time ago, and it didn't become a buzzword until recent times. So we need to really look at what is AI and the way it works. One of the earlier instances of AI was Skynet, in an original movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1984. So if we look at it, 1984, that was nearly 40 years ago. That's when they started talking about AI and the Skynet taking over. When it felt the threat, it started to protect itself and armed itself and so on. So we got to go back into the history and say, this is nothing new. It's nothing revolutionary. We've been living with it for a number of years, but the development and the pace has changed. So I don't expect everybody to read every word on each of the slides, but the keynote here is that 1984 and on August the 4th, 1987, the system then. And then AI was also introduced into Star Treks. And Borg were the ones in 1989, where man was taken and half man, half machine. Well, what do you think Elon Musk is doing by planting the chip into the brain of people? So we're doing exactly what was predicted back in 1989. So again, things are moving on and things are going to get speeded up and different applications for AI will develop. After that, if you haven't watched this movie, I strongly recommend that you take time and you actually look at this movie, which was Steven Spielberg's, and in the summer of 2001. So again, that was over 25 years ago, and this continues today, and they produced a child which had feelings and senses, and it behaved for all purposes like the real thing. So again, it's bearing in mind that was AI. AI actually is being able to replicate the actions of the human being and do it properly and better than that. And it's a continuous learning curve that should be really bear in mind. So overall view, benefit, challenges, application across different domains, and there is an overlap between AI and data analysis. It is essential to recognize the distinction between the two, because majority of the people confuse data analysis, number crunching, and AI. So we got to actually be aware that there are different applications and how AI is sort of learnt about, talked about, and applied in real life. And this is a very quick summary of what goes on. Self-driving cars, digital health, and you've got various industries and personalized smartphones and bank fraud, etc. So AI is going to play a key role in detection and support mechanism as we go forward. But how it is used and how it's applied is going to be the key. So then we've got artificial intelligence, AI referred to as simulation human being intelligent machines that are programmed to think and learn like human beings. Well, they will not quite rival that yet, but we're well on our way towards that goal. And these systems can perform tasks typically require human intelligence, such as understanding languages, recognizing patterns, solving problems, and making decisions. Big advantage of this is we are already seeing the languages translations that are taking place today, and we're seeing the evidence of that with Google and smart AI, deep learning, and all the things. So narrowing down to a design-specific tasks, virtual assistant, facial recognition, they're all key features of AI while it's being generated. Hypothetical system could perform cognitive tasks that can do multiple tasks simultaneously that humans will not be able to do. So the key components, data, foundation of AI is used to train the models. But the data is needed to train the model to make sure that all eventualities and all things are taken into account. And we got algorithms, machine learning, and neural networks, and simple algorithms. I could go into details of a 40-minute presentation in any one of those subjects because this subject is so vast that it's virtually impossible to cover in a short space of time that we've been given. And efficiency driven, because repetitive tasks, human beings get bored, and AI, the machines and the robotics don't have that problem. And they can do the menial tasks repetitively without complaining and without stopping. Human beings, though we are far more flexible and thinking on our feet, AI will only do tasks that are being addressed to them at the time. But the biggest change that's going to occur is that people are afraid, will AI take our jobs? Because that's a major concern that wherever I go, the question is always asked, is AI going to take over our jobs? Because more and more robotics and computers and so on are doing the tasks. Well, I always tell them, yes, of course they're going to take over some of the jobs. But then, didn't the Industrial Revolution do that? Exactly the same thing. When robotics were introduced into car factories and everything else, people were afraid that we're going to all lose our jobs. Yes, we did lose some jobs, but then there is a side impact that we create alternative jobs. So what happens is the people then are trained for alternative rather than what the robotics can do. And robotics can work 24/7. They don't need a tea break. They don't need a lunch break. They don't need a holiday. And they don't have a wife or a husband at home complaining. So there are some advantages, and there are definitely disadvantages as well. So disadvantages, like I said, job displacement. And the biggest concern that everybody has is the ethical concerns. Will we cross over the ethics, cross red line? The answer is yes, because no matter how hard you try, no matter what safeguards you put in place, there will be a crossover. Not everybody is going to abide by the rules that are set out. And then the military applications and so on come into it. And a quick conclusion, AI transforming industry, shaping the future, how we live and work. While the potential for AI is vast, balancing the innovations with ethical considerations and minimizing the risk. There is deep risk concerns with AI, but the genie's out of the bottle, unfortunately. And once the genie's out of the bottle, it's virtually impossible to put it back in the bottle. So we're going to have to learn to live with it and find ways to safeguard people. So then we've got various things that development, understanding, tech industry. We need more well-funded, dedicated AI safety research. And a lot of the larger countries like America, China, India, and others need to invest vast sums of money into the safeguards of what's going on at the moment. So we need future innovation will come from open source. There are massive efforts underway to making the models smaller and more efficient. And the future is combining the models and the chain. So virtual personal assistant, we're already seeing evidence of that with the Siri, the Google, Amazon, Alexa. So these things are happening and they're going to continue. Though there are concerns, but they do make our lives easier as well. Where previously, when I was growing up, we went to college and university, we had to do research papers, and it took months going to the library and copying the pages and writing it. Now it's damn sight easier. Either you ask AI, Google. Uncle Google has all the answers, but now Uncle Google is also being left behind with various new AI tools that are coming into effect. So it's making a lot more information available to a lot more people, readily available at very, very fast speed, where research paper could take you 3 months to prepare. Now you can probably do the same work in less than a couple of days. So there are advantages and disadvantages. And there is a speech recognition. You speak into a computer, now it types it all out for you, where previously you had to spend hours and hours and hours typing every word. So natural language progression, language translations, self-driving car, medical images, and drug discovery. So all those research things do play a key role, and they will have an advantage going forward. So application across gaming, financial services, education, and robotics. Education is one of the winners of this, where a lot more information is available to the students, readily available, that wasn't available to my generation at the time. Virtual personal assistants, like I said, we've already covered that. It's already happening, and it's already there. And you got recommended some of this. Image, speech recognition. Now you can see, you can put an image into it. It tells you what the image is, where it came from, and recognize it, and so on. So there are some advantages, and same thing with the medical and drug discovery. Educational personalized learning platforms are being raised now. More and more of those are being issued. Robotics, like I said, robotics have been already deployed and used in various aspects. But as we go forward, robotics are becoming a lot more efficient, but then not only for the good application, but there is also the negative side of robotics as well, because the military applications are quite frightening, to be honest with you. Unless they are controlled, we don't know where they will lead to. Like I said early on, the Terminator, Skynet, where it took over and where it felt a threat, is try to destroy human beings, and it will went forward. So there are overlaps between AI and data analyses. So again, we will go through those, and I'm quite happy to discuss any of those later on as well, because the time limitations, I've got to go through it quickly as possible and cover much ground as I can. Definition of scope: AI is a broad field that aims to create intelligent system capable of mimicking human-like functions that we are all aware of. And you can see the components: machine learning and applications. Decision-making autonomously, again, like driving cars and so on, they are way, way ahead of time now. But what we see in a public domain is only tip of the iceberg. I can assure you there are a lot more advanced systems behind the scenes that we don't even know about yet. And a lot of money is being pumped into it by the governments to do that. And one of the applications, drones. Drones are becoming a lot more intelligent as well. And the applications of drone it's quite encouraging in one sense, but then quite frightening in another. Again, at another opportunity, I will then discuss the drone applications and the frightening thoughts of what they can do and what they can't do. So the goal of the data analysis, primary goal, is to transform data into algorithms and identify patterns, trends, support decision-making based on the evidence. So we already covered very lightly the machine learning, auto data-driven decision-making. And in summary, while AI data analysis shares some common grounds, AI broadens the field, emphasizing the creation and intelligence system. So there is a lot of it going on at the moment, and we really need to keep our eyes focused on where we're going and where it's leading to. Now, what we're going to do is introduction to security measures. Presentation explore the cutting-edge security equipment very, very briefly, and security measures essential for safeguarding assets and individuals. Security equipment is the backbone of proactive security measures. Security equipment continuously evolving to meet the new challenges as it goes along. Unfortunately, security is one of those fields where we're always following, never leading. And when an event happens, then we try to find a way around it. Why are we doing this? Why security? Pan Am 103 on 21st of December 1988 destroyed the Pan Am flight, and 243 passengers were killed, including 16 crew and 11 members on the ground. And that was an act of terrorism, which I can happily discuss the details with you. And on Monday, April the 15th, 2013, around 2 p.m., I was at the world famous Boston Marathon, where the bombs were carried inside the pressure cookers by the people, and they blew up, and a lot of damage was done, a lot of injury and mayhem. So those are just a few acts of terrorism. And then also in 1985, truck exploded outside in the street of a federal building in Oklahoma in the US. Unfortunately, prior to this incident, whenever you spoke about terrorism or acts of terrorism, Americans didn't really recognize terrorism until that happened, because Americans always believed terrorism was somebody else's problem, it was never theirs. Until a homegrown soldier blew up a homemade explosives truck in front of the federal building, only then did the Americans wake up that this problem is real and it affects the world. And then we are all aware of Mumbai, where terrorists attacked the Taj Hotel and various other sites, and a number of major instances took place. And that highlighted that our security forces were way, way, way behind the 8 ball. And in fact, what happened was there was live streaming going on, and terrorists were watching the live streaming, so we were giving them information saying, hey, we're coming through the front door, so get ready to shoot us. So again, very important lessons were learned, and we learned a great deal, and some of those have been implemented and put into place. Well, we all know about 9th of September 2001, where Twin Towers were blown up. And my previous speaker rightfully, very, very highly specialist highlighted this problem where we can never make buildings fireproof. What we can do is we can take the steps to make them safer. But for a single major incident like this, we will never be able to make the building. You can do all the building codes you like. Building codes are only to assist you, right? It's up to the individuals to be proactive. And what I'm going to do is, this is active and proactive. One of the prime examples is, what is proactive and what is reactive? Easiest example is your car. It breaks down on the highway. You call the mechanic and he comes to attend the car and he wants to fix it. That is reactive. After the incident has occurred, then you take steps to fix it. But proactive means if you had taken that car to the garage week before, checked to make sure that the oil level, the tire pressure, and everything else was in place, then you are less likely to have that problem. You can never say never, but you reduce the risk, because risk has to be calculated and evaluated. So in the building codes and the fire instance, that is exactly what I'm talking about. We are being proactive, not reactive. We install the sprinkler systems like the sir said, and they're very reliable, they're predictable, and you can depend on them, and they work very well. But that is being proactive. And after the fire took place and the building got burnt down, well, there's not much point in installing sprinkler system because the damage has already been done. And same thing here, you can see this suicide bomber at the Marriott Hotel in Pakistan. History. We always follow. Hijacking took place, and Federal Castro did the damage where knives were being used, and as a result of that, the metal detectors were introduced into the aviation security. So when you went through the airport, you had to walk through a metal detector to see if you got any metal on you. And that was all done thanks to an individual. Pan Am 103, Colonel Gaddafi. And what happened was, hold baggage screening was introduced. So all your bags which were going to go into the hold of aircraft were being scanned. Previously, there was none of that. So again, we reacted. So it was a reactive measure, not proactive. And there you go. And on 21st of December 1988, Twin Towers, that ended up the cockpit doors being made safer, because then they can't get to the pilot to force him to take you somewhere else. And such instances continued with the Richard Reed shoe bomber. What he was doing was, he was flying and he went to the airport at Charles de Gaulle Airport in France, and security questioned him. It was at the Al Al security, they questioned him. He failed the questions. And so they said to him, no, you can't fly. So the airline were under obligation to put him in a hotel, which they did. And he stayed the night. Following day, he came back up again. Same thing, he failed again. And they said, well, we can't keep doing that. We have to put him on a plane. And so he went on the plane. During the flight, he tried to light his shoes with matches to blow up his shoes. The explosives were in his shoes. I'll show you evidence of that in a while. If he had any intelligence, he should have come to me. I could have told him how to do it properly, and it would have worked, guaranteed every time. So he was pretty dumb. Thank God for that. That saved a hell of a lot of lives. And these are his actual shoes. These photographs at the bottom, they are from the FBI file. When they captured him, they then took off his shoes, cut them open to see exactly where the explosives were. They were hidden in the sole of the shoes, in the heel. And though it was a small amount of explosives, but if you're sitting next to a window, you will still do enough damage to blow up the plane. And also in UK, certain guys got together and they found a way of putting explosives into liquid bottles, which was the drinks, because they contain high levels of sugar and they act as fuel, and that's why the liquid and gels ban took place. So that's why you were stopped from taking any bottles or liquids on the plane. It was thanks to these individuals. So like I said, in each of those instances that I've highlighted, it was after the event that proactive measures were taken, and rather than, it was reactive rather than proactive. And that's the underwear bomber. And what he did was he hid, I don't know what made him do it, but he hid explosives in his underwear. And when he tried to light it, it burnt, because certain explosive materials burn at quite high temperature. They didn't explode. If they exploded, he would have been put out of his misery. But unfortunately, it burnt in his underwear. I don't need to tell you. I think he screamed in pain. So then he was captured. That's the picture of his underwear. You can see certain parts of it still burnt, and that's the guy in question. Now, what we're going to do is have a quick look at reactive measures, define what they are, examples, incident plans, surveillance cameras, introduction of detection systems. We're all aware that these should be outlined in the action plan, event of security breach or incident, including data breach and physical breach of cyber attacks, etc. And the previous gentleman was actually also discussing the fire plans, which are no different from any other plans and a strategy. Yeah, whether it's CCTV or safeguarding fire or health and safety, whether you're talking about the width of the stairwell and whatever it is, you have to look at it in detail and plan accordingly, right? Because you must plan ahead. And then you got the reactive measures. Like I said, if your car breaks down and it's on the highway, you react to it rather than proactive. Access control, I can give you certain instances. Key card systems, key is given the access, not the individual. That's why the problem was, if I gave you the key, you could open the same door than anybody else. With the biometrics, it became a little bit harder. That's why it was introduced. But in the beginning, the failure rate was quite high and the costs were very high. But now they're coming down and it's becoming a more sort of acceptable means. PIN, again, if I give you the PIN has the access, not the individual. So you've got to be individual-based rather than number-based or a card-based. Now, proactive measures, because defining access control measures, access control system, employee training, awareness program, regular security audits. I think I keep coming back to my excellent previous speaker, And I'm sorry, I have to use him as my butthead because a regular audit. Sir said the same thing, audit, audit, audit. You must audit your systems, whether it's CCTV, whether it's fire, whether it's anything else. Audit is the key. And you got to not just cover the cracks, but highlight the cracks and find the way around it and look to solve the problem rather than to cover up the problem. That's the whole purpose of audit. It is not just to give somebody money to carry out the audit and sign on the bottom of the paper. It's to highlight problems and concerns and issues and then address them accordingly. And then, like I said, access control, training. Training is the key. No matter what subject you're in, no matter what industry you're in, whether it's fire, whether it's building regulations, whether it's security, whether it's aviation, training is the key. Well-trained staff will save you a lot of money and time in the long run. Because if you take shortcuts on training, I guarantee you, you will pay the price. Sooner or later, there will be a failure, and that failure will cost you damn side more than the training programs. Now, Apsa, here in Nepal, is actively looking to train people, to work with people, and to highlight these issues and concerns. Apsa can provide you the service. Call upon them. You got Sunil sitting here. Make his life a misery. Tell him, we want these training courses. Force his hand. Make him do it. Apsa promised to do it. Let's call them. Let's challenge them. You said we are going to start implementing these training courses. Why aren't you doing them? Yes, but it's going to cost me money. Well, if you don't train and you don't have the program, it's going to cost you damn side more. So let's work towards it. Access control, employee training, a regular security audit, and vulnerability assessment. Again, I've highlighted the point again. That is the key of audit, to highlight issues and concerns. Access control system, employee training awareness programs, a regular security audit, and vulnerabilities. I've highlighted them here, so if anybody wants to have a copy or whatever, I'm happy to discuss that afterwards as well, because if I start reading it, then I really am undermining my audience, because a lot of people are far more intelligent than I am, and they're quite capable of reading few lines of text that are put on there. I don't want to be a parrot that reads word by word by word, because I expect you to just look at the highlight and realize, yes, it has merit. Now I want to change the subject again. We all think that what we're doing today is something new, it's revolutionary, it's just come around the corner. X-rays, because we go through the airports, we think X-rays are great. What people actually forget, X-rays were first discovered by German physicist Röntgen in 1895, and it was purely accidental. So that's why it was originally called X-ray, because he didn't know what ray it was. Later on, it became known as Röntgen ray as well. And those are the images, because people did not know the actual harm, the side effects of X-rays. And they were actually using them, open X-ray source, to look at women with a chest and hands and so on. This is the first image of X-rays being used in security industry. You can actually see, let me just move away from there. That's the bag in there. You got the visor there. You got open X-ray source at the other end. It was so popular, people stood around watching. It was that exciting, without realizing that they might even sterilize themselves and limit the number of children born. Maybe we should introduce that. So, again, 2 years after the X-rays were discovered, X-rays were discovered in 1895. In 1897, X-rays were being deployed for security application. These were the people going on the trains, and they were carrying their suitcases. They wanted to make sure that they didn't have any threat objects on them at the time. Now I would want to be proactive. I want everybody to look at and appreciate the job of a security screener. We're talking about training. I want you to look at this image, each one of you. On every table there is a piece of paper and a pen. I want you to pick up the piece of paper and a pen, write down, what do you see in this bag? Okay, come on. I mean, it's only, nobody else is going to see that. You're the only person who's going to see it. Let me see what you can recognize. This is my briefcase, and I was going to work. Those are my keys to my car. So what else do you see in that bag? Operator has less than 5 seconds to view that bag. You've already had 12 seconds. And I'm giving you a few more seconds so that at least everybody has the equal opportunity to look at what is in that bag. I think when I do reveal that, you're going to be slightly surprised. Are we ready? There we go. You've got 2 blocks of Semtex, okay? Two blocks of Semtex. You've got 2 guns, North American long rifle and a Browning. You've got a detonator, electronic detonator here, mercury jerk switch, 2 guns. This is a pathway timer used by the IRA to blow up various things. Thank you so much for the speaker, but my voice is loud enough. I hope you can hear me all. Right? So again, that just shows you what a difficult task it is for the screen operator. He has 5 seconds. We've had over 1.5 minutes, and we are still struggling to come up with it. So we must appreciate the job of the aviation security screen operators. That's how difficult a task it is. So that's why we come back to the same word again, training, training, training. We must train our staff and do it well. Now what happened was, all the x-rays at the time had a single view. This particular images that you're going to see were produced by me at Heathrow Airport when I was head of security. It's going to have the same focus again, training, because when a laptop was put in the tray, it was scanned. And the operator would look at that laptop, say, yeah, that looks good and that looks clean. And some operators said, I didn't like the look of that, can you turn it around? And they said, yes, of course. So they turned it around and they scanned it again. And it was still the same. But the knife was actually sitting on top of the laptop. I can show you again, right? There you go. Can you see the knife now? See it? But it was sitting on top of it. So that became a problem. Single view x-rays did not do the job. So then they had to introduce a dual view. Second view was taken from the side of the laptop, and the knife sitting on the top became really, really clear. So you can see where technology played a role after we learned its weaknesses. Now I'll come back to the Richard Reed, the shoes bomber. His shoes were exactly like these. What happened was, when the incident took place at Heathrow, my boss said to me, he goes, Jagtar, can you do some training program so we can train our staff to look what to look for? So obviously I went home, bought the trainers, and took out the sole from inside and started putting explosives into it. I tell you, I swear to you, I'm telling you the truth. My mother went to my wife and said, are you sure we should be making these bombs at home? So I was glad she told my wife, and didn't call the police. Otherwise, I'll be wearing an orange suit somewhere. And they wouldn't even ask me, it's for a training purposes, it'll be too late. So what happened was, these are the shoes. Clean shoes with explosives. Like I said, he didn't use the detonator. He used what's called explosive train, and he tried to light it. But if he had come to me, I would have put him right. There is the shoe. There's the explosives inside it. And there is the detonator. So I try to show you that not only just words, but with images. So you get a feel for it. Because all the other presentations are going to be a little bit boring. I thought I'd give you something a little bit more exciting. Talk about guns and bombs and drugs and things like that. I don't do them, I just talk about them. Okay, there is the shoe. There is the heel inside it. If you look at the side view, it becomes difficult to see it. If it's a heavier boot, it becomes even more difficult to recognize it. And I represent Nuctech. And this is the various equipment that is deployed throughout the world for various applications. Not only X-rays at the airport, but border control and customs for drugs, explosives, weapons, narcotics, and so on. And that's the number of various share of the market that these companies. I have been lucky enough to be managing director of Smiths Hyman and a vice president of Repiscan and a senior consultant for Nuctech, 3 of the top companies in the world today, and I have senior positions with each of them. And I just wanted to, that's why I thought it's appropriate. Let me share some little bit of knowledge, but also try to make it a little bit more interesting rather than slides, numbers, and graphs. And this is the port where we're talking about radioactive materials being detected as well, because cross borders, that's another threat that we need to be aware of. And so advanced security system, biometrics, AI-driven, we've got drone security and monitoring. Drones are going to be coming big, and they're playing a big, big, big part in our lives, okay? So CCTV, IP cameras, intrusion detection systems, biometric authentication, AI-driven. How am I doing for time? So you can see the drone security, aerial view, rapid deployment, cost-effective risk reduction. And you can have number of systems employed all the time with night visions, facial recognition, and all of the features that are coming through. And I'll be happy to discuss some of the features that I haven't discussed on here. Okay? So you can see the challenges of deployment and challenges of security equipment and privacy concerns, which I highlighted early on with AI as well. And we will have some issues and the cost considerations. And again, we can see where the future trends are going and where the technology is going to go. So it's important to balance the approach so that reactive measures are necessary for swiftly addressing the incidents, and proactive measures are to reduce the likelihood of incident. Again, I keep saying, be proactive, train your staff well, and audit even better. But audit has to be not run by the management or by the accountants. Audit has to be independent outsiders who will highlight the problems. You can hide the auditor's report, it's up to you at your peril. But my advice is to do it properly and learn from it and make the challenges. So anyway, this is the quick, if you got any questions, please ask. And here are my details if anybody else needs to. I hope you found it interesting, if nothing else. I didn't want to bore you too much. I hope I didn't bore you. So, thank you. Yes, sir. Can we have the mic? The mic is here. Sir, you can ask a question.
Mr. Jagtar,
Sir.
I have heard that you have already visited 62 countries where you have imparted the training and given the research papers. Then how many days you stay at home in Yeah,
I,
that's the question.
I think you ask a very, very awkward and a difficult question because I'm nearly, well, I am 70 years of age. I think how I survived the divorce is thanks to my kids because my wife was occupied with kids. If I didn't have kids, I would have been divorced in the first 5 years. Average, over the years, I think I spent about 32 weeks a year traveling. Average. And I have probably taken more flights than a captain of a 747. So it's beginning to take its toll. And as I get older, I think I'm getting slower. I think my wife's forgotten about the divorce bit. Now she's glad I'm not home. I hope I answered that to the best of my ability. Any other questions, sir?
Sami, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, firstly, I'd like to put a mention that this was one of the better presentations, if not the best, because I didn't get enough time to hear you much more than I wanted to because of the constraints of the time. And I'll request Sunil Shrestha that in the next conference when you call him, you should actually give him half a day, yeah, so that people can, understand and listen to him in a very, very proactive manner. Sir, I have few questions.
Yes, sir.
One of them is on your presentation on reactive and proactive approach. My question, number one, is I saw the slide in which the liquid explosive in UK were taken by the 3 boys, and since then, carrying the liquids has been banned, causing a lot of unsolved apprehensions, questions, and also a cost to a regular traveler. Now, this comes from the fact, as you have educated us, is that the 3 boys then made liquid explosive, or they carried the liquid explosive for a purpose of a bad intention. Nobody since then at the airport authority or the border control, as the case may be, knew much about liquid explosive per se. And this is one of the examples I'm quoting from your slide. But there could be a abracadabra do, which I have not heard. I means the border control or the immigration. How do I have a proactive approach on a inky, pinky, ponky blue, which I don't know of? That's my first question, sir. Please.
Let me answer one at a time, okay? Firstly, when these people were producing and it was highlighted, because there was no equipment to actually see if it was a clear water or explosives or anything else, and gels. So the easiest thing was to ban all liquids on the plane. Yes, it was uncomfortable, unpleasant for the passenger, but it was damn sight safer than to lose your lives in an explosion on the plane. So for that, it was to protect lives rather than to look at the cost implications. Second part of your question, proactive. What happened was after that, a lot of work by each of the manufacturers took place. CT, which is computer tomography, was introduced into a lot of airports. So that actually can highlight and actually identify liquids inside the bottle. And a lot of the manufacturers, which I can give you the details of, I've worked with most of them, and they then started to find ways to find what was inside the bottle, whether it's a glass bottle or a plastic bottle, if it was explosives. So a lot of work went behind the scenes. And the other thing is, I think, and I strongly believe that, which is the best way to keep a secret? Don't talk about it. So sometimes it's better not to mention why the bans are taking place, because that will then develop other people to look for a similar situations. Liquid explosives are not easy to make, I can tell you. No other explosives. But then internet came in. Internet then made sure that they gave the recipes of how to make explosives, everybody, so every nutter in the land can download that and look at it. Second question, sir?
Sir, my second question to you is about your slide on AI on healthcare. Now we see a lot of that, and some of them also, some of us also deal with healthcare now using AI in terms of, let's say, eye test analysis and history of the person and what could be the problem. My question is to you is, sir, that while AI is trying to understand the human brain by putting chips or behavior from a human being, can we actually look at times to come where a complicated surgery is being done through AI because the human body does not behave a million times, it could just be a different result. So there is no trend of how a human body will behave in a critical situation. Do you look, as an expert on this, a healthcare major surgery being done through AI?
Sir, let me address this in a couple of different ways. One, when we're talking about healthcare AI being deployed, where cancer scans were being individually looked at by an individual person, and when you got a complex images, a lot of them were being missed. AI, with artificial intelligence, given the parameters to look for the dark patches and various other forms, the shape, the size, the positioning of it, it actually helps, especially where the breast cancer was a major issue. A lot of AI was being deployed to identify the various strands of X-rays. As far as the surgery is concerned, yes, I have learned through bad mistakes, never say never. Because just few years ago, if somebody told you, just 10, 15, 20 years ago, that they'll be able to identify you walking in the street and know everything about you, you wouldn't have believed it. It was a dream. But now it's everyday reality. Face recognition is everywhere and it's being deployed. So yes, I can actually see, because once the human body has been put to rest in the sense that it does not move, it doesn't flicker, then robotics can be a lot more effective. But that doesn't necessarily mean robotics in somebody takes a knife and cuts you open. There are miniature robotics that can be actually sent through your veins to go and look at it and create images, and even to deliver drugs and pinpoint accuracy where they should be delivered. Yes, it is happening. Yes, I strongly believe it will happen. And also research into drugs, where it used to take months and months and months of trials. Now with algorithms, they can carry out a lot of that in the lab, but final testing still requires. It hasn't eliminated that. So I hope I answered your question, sir.
Sir, not only did you answer my questions to satisfaction, but you also opened newer points for me to ask. With the paucity of time, I'll rest my case for today. We have some more time tomorrow and today. We'll have that conversation in private, as in with limited people.
Sir, like I said, everyone here present, or who are not here, if you want to discuss something, I am available. Knowledge shared is knowledge doubled. Knowledge left on my laptop is knowledge wasted. Because I don't find people a threat. If I share my knowledge, they're not a threat to me, it's encouragement to me. I feel encouraged.
Thank you, sir.
We then become reactive because an incident has happened. Once an incident has happened, you get the learnings out of it, and then you implement the strategies to overcome those problems, right?
Absolutely
now,
right.
Now, one question which I'll not take more time, except for Tel Aviv, which I traveled to, they scanned my bag 2 kilometers or a kilometer before the airport terminal building. They found out every nut and bolt of it, and then I entered the terminal building. Today, if you really look at Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, anywhere, or anywhere internationally, they don't scan your bag. You just get into the airport terminal building, you get a boarding card, you go to the security gate. Now, there is a huge risk that you carry weapons within the terminal building and you can create a havoc. Within that, maybe it's very damaging to the nation security issues at that point of time. The ability to scan the baggage before the person enters into the terminal building is completely missed today. That is one thing. And second, very small thing, people carry from duty-free alcohol bottles. They are made of glass. A broken glass is as good as a weapon. Now, we are allowed not to carry many things inside the aircraft, but all these can become lethal weapons, which again probably is because of the duty-free related issues that they are allowed, but they can also become a perceptive threats in terms of it. So baggage scanning at the terminal and these kind of bottles which we carry, which could become a weapon, is something which is probably waiting to happen for an incident and then become a protocol to be taken.
Okay, let me answer that. Firstly, what happens is security itself. Firstly, sir, let me address this. Security itself, I mean, I'm not sure if everybody's going to appreciate what I'm going to say. Security itself is smoke screen and mirrors. It is actually a threat. So that if you take something, we will find it and you will be punished. So it's a threat, okay? The other thing that if you are dedicated and you want to carry out something, like I've given you the instance of underwear bomber, Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, they will find ways around to beat the security. As far as you're concerned about giving the bags somewhere else and them being taken into the terminal, I can assure you, all those bags are screened. I can guarantee you, all those bags are screened. They already know who you are. They already know which flight you're going to take. They know where you're flying to. And the other incident that happens is, bags are always matched with the passenger list. And if you don't go on the plane, you miss your flight, try it. No, I'm just saying you try it. If you miss your flight, the plane will not take off. They will hold the plane, take your bags off, and then the plane would go. So this is again to mitigate the risk that a threat bag is on the plane. So they make sure that that is done. And that's why I said to you, a lot of things go on behind the scenes. And also, next generation, they're also looking at a regular passenger who is less likely to be a threat than the others. What you're trying to do is, you're trying to stop the nutcase. That's all you're doing. You're trying to stop the madman. And also, when I was a security system executive at the BAA, Heathrow's 7 airports, Heathrow alone used to have 65 million passengers a year. And each passenger carries over 2 bags. I'm aware of, okay. That's 130 million bags. Not every year we found a bomb. So again, we come back to risk analysis. Risks are low, right? But the costs are. So it's smoke screens and mirrors. It's better to do something rather than to do nothing. So do something. It's better than doing nothing. Okay. Are we done?